This ant's family naturally invited a Taoist priest. This Taoist priest is an old Taoist priest in the next village, and on weekdays, he relies on fortune-telling for others to do white-haired living, and at that time, he also had to invite the people in his aunt's family to invite him, and he wanted to send a red envelope, a cigarette, 2 bottles of liquor, 2 caddies of sugar, a pig's head, and a number of fabrics. When I went, the Taoist priest was already there, holding a bell in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other, and there was a bowl on the kitchen knife, and then he recited a mantra, which was called breaking the Shah, and then mixed the tea leaves in the bowl with rice, and sprinkled them into the coffin, and shouted, "Get up!" A few people who helped, so he carried the old lady into the coffin. The others immediately took the straw that was placed under the bed, and the clothes and shoes that my aunt wore before her death, put it outside the gate and burn it. It is commonly known as burning bed grass. The entry of the deceased into the customs is considered a great refining. Then immediately put the kitchen knife and bowl under the coffin. We kids are about to start kowtowing. Had dinner in the evening. My cousin took me and hid in the corner. In order to stand in this position, see the ferry bridge up close. It's really not easy, because children are forbidden at this time. So we hid under the stairwell. Then I brought a chair with a backrest. Wear it with clothes. Then on the head of the chair, tie a person's head with cotton, draped with a black towel. On the edge of the chair, then wrap it up with an apron. It means that this person is the dead aunt. After that, there are 6 square tables. Form an elongated shape. The top is made of bamboo. Make it into the shape of a bridge. At this time, the filial son was holding the tablet. Kneel to greet the dead. The Taoist chanting. Everyone chooses to obey the undead. It was the chair that crossed the bridge. It's terrifying. That is, my eldest cousin, humming Lingwei, walked ahead. Little cousin and cousin walk in the back with a chair. The Taoist priest led the way in front. Ring the bell as you walk with your eyes closed. What about the bridge? It is arched. The Taoist priest passed. The eldest cousin also walked over, just while everyone was waiting for the little cousin to come over. But he fell at the very arch of the bridge. At first, I thought bamboo was slippery. The Taoist priest saw it. I can only say that my aunt doesn't want to leave yet. Nostalgia for everyone. Tell my little cousin to go again. Everyone has the mentality of watching the excitement. Go again. This time it's the same place. Wrestling again. This time, the Taoist priest couldn't stand it. Let the 3 of them, my cousin-in-law, and my little cousin walk on the chairs. The 3rd time, as expected, he fell in the same position again. This ferry bridge can't be crossed. It means that the soul of the person cannot enter samsara. This was a hurried relief for everyone present. We kids are still watching the fun. It's just that a lot of adults already want to get out of here. This situation is meant to be problematic. This scene was the first time the old Taoist priest had seen it. I was also panicked. So he found hemp rope. Tie the chair directly to the little cousin's body. At this time, you can't change people. If you change someone, it means that this person is not a filial son. That's very embarrassing. The 4th time to cross the ferry bridge, in the same location. When the chair is in that position again, the whole bridge slammed. Poured. Everyone on the bridge, including the Taoist priest, they all fell to the ground. What about the chair? It also fell directly and fell apart. Those present hurried over to help them up. Except for chairs. The others were fine. Only that Taoist priest. The head fell to the foot of the table. Straight to the red. Everyone brought a towel to cover him. Ask him what to do. At this time, the old Taoist priest was no longer good. He shouted in his mouth, "Don't do it. Don't do it. There are ghosts here. When he spoke, he was already crying. Then cover your head. I didn't even have time to take anything from the guys. Just ran out. You said that this Taoist priest took the lead and said that a ghost ran out. And what about the rest? It exploded all at once. Who would dare to stay? Except for the people in the eldest aunt's family. Others, including me, they all ran out at once. That night, we stayed at my grandmother's house. It hasn't waited until dawn. The door of my grandmother's house was knocked on. The person who opened the door was my grandfather. Open the door and take a look. It's the big cousin. When you enter the door, both legs were shaking. As soon as he grabbed his grandfather, he shouted, "Uncle, let's go over and be in company." The family did not dare to keep anyone. I'm afraid he'll panic. Or tomorrow morning. Just poke it out. It's a white event. I don't dare to do it anymore. My grandfather that day. I also saw that scene. Although tomorrow morning will be allowed, I pulled it for the old lady to bury. It's effortless. But it doesn't conform to the rules. Second, they were scared away. After this, I'm afraid I don't dare to live in the house. He remembered Zawinbin. Let the big table wait. Went and woke my dad up. Hurry up and take a look at Zawinbin. During those years, our family doesn't have much contact with Zawinbin. He has also been to my house a few times. Every time, I go to the general's temple. And then it was gone. It is said that I don't even spend much time at home. No one knows what he's doing. Rushed to Zha's house overnight. It was his youngest son, Zaliang, who opened the door. Asked his father. Zha Yang said he was sleeping. Just got back from out of town. It was not long before he stopped. Hurry over and ask Zawinbin to get up. My dad did yes. It's also quite respectful. If it's not urgent. I'm afraid I don't dare to bother. It wasn't long before that. Zawinbin came out, dressed and asked my dad what was the matter. I haven't seen you in a few years. Zawinbin still looks so energetic. My dad told me about the situation. Tell his son to take care of his home. So my dad and I went to my grandmother's house. I went to my grandmother's house. It's dawn. What about Zawinbin? Let's go to my aunt's house first. And then it went out. I went directly to the Taoist priest's house. Knock on the door. After asking the Taoist priest about the situation of the day, I went to my grandmother's house again. I went to my grandmother's house. Zawinbin said that he wanted to sleep. Call him again when it gets dark. In addition, inform my aunt's house that everything is business as usual. Just don't seal the coffin. When it gets dark, he'll pass. Zawinbin spoke. I've never been a big fan of explanations. Everyone had to do as he said. What about my aunt's house? There aren't many of them anymore. No one in the village dared to go. Naturally, we children were also told. Can't go outside and run around. Wait until it's dark. Grandma cautiously went to wake up Zawinbin. Finished dinner. My dad couldn't help but ask him what was going on. Zawinbin said with a smile. Oh, that old Taoist priest. I'm afraid I won't take this errand again. A person who has studied with the martial arts for a few years and fell in love. He also dares to claim to be a Taoist priest. The difference between true and false Taoists. In fact, it is not about whether you know the basic routines. It's about the guys and the Taoists in their hands. Zawinbin is such a person. That same evening, everyone heard that there was another Taoist priest at my aunt's house. It's still the one who saved my aunt. Look at the lively people. Then they rushed over in groups. Someone who was scared to death last night. Today, I want to go for some excitement. But Zawinbin never disappoints others. Yesterday's messy scene has been cleaned up. The old lady was still asleep in the coffin. The incense is still burning. The long cotton lamp below is also still lit. The people watching the excitement outside have already squeezed their necks. Zawinbin's first words after entering the door. I almost scared half of them to death. Take the paper off your mom's face, lest he be suffocated. The eldest cousin also couldn't figure out the door. This dead man is still suffocating. Isn't that crazy? Zhao Wenbin saw that he did not move. Shaking his head, he went up and picked up the yellow paper. Speak again. Men stayed. All the women went back to their own houses, closed the door. At first, the group of women who watched the excitement were still reluctant to leave. It's just Zhang Wenbin's next sentence. I want to be a substitute for the dead. It is possible to stay. After speaking, the sword is a piece of yellow paper that I just took down. Rub it off. The paper burned. The women saw this skill. Don't go. Wait, I'm really going to be a substitute for the dead. One of the women screamed and ran. The rest of the birds and beasts are scattered. I'm afraid that I will stay and become the last one to be a substitute for the dead. After everyone is gone, naturally, we children were also expelled as well. The women led them home. Leave a group of old men present. Zhao Wenbin spoke again. I've already touched my own girls today. Go back too. Several men scratched their heads in embarrassment, walked away amid the roar of others. After closing the door, Zhao Wenbin said to the people at the scene with a straight face, Wait a minute, sit all on the floor. No matter what happens, no sound is allowed. Then Zhao Wenbin took the old lady out of the coffin, placed on the door panel, and asked the eldest cousin to change the old lady's shroud. Put on the clothes you wear on your daily life, and let a couple of men carry the coffin away. Helpless, my aunt's clothes and everything have been burned. After hurriedly finding my cousin's clothes and changing them, he lay on the door panel. Zhao Wenbin motioned to turn off the lights. Explain that, wait. No matter what happens, don't panic. Then set up the press table. There are a few things that are indispensable in advance of the Dharma, also put on the stage one by one. Only this time there is only one spiritual position in Xiangzhu, nothing else. Zhao Wenbin also sat on the ground, hands crossed into a meditative collision. It didn't take long for it to be nailed. If I have to talk about this paragraph, I can only describe this from Zhao Wenbin's point of view, because outsiders just waited for it. Got a result, but I don't know the danger of this. In fact, Zhao Wenbin's move is called soul unsheathing. As for why the strong men, it is also with the help of their foreign spirit, so that you don't go back forever. If it weren't for my grandmother's face, he didn't want to take this one, because not everyone wants to go down. This matter should be explained from the crossing of the fairy bridge. The ancients crossed the immortal bridge, which means that they sent their relatives to the underworld. Since then, it has been a separation of yin and yang. The people and ghosts sent there in different ways can be regarded as losing the last part of the road. This aunt's fairy bridge can't be crossed 3 or 4 times. The reason for this is not that my aunt refuses to leave. It's that she can't go at all. This fairy bridge leads to the underworld. This is the only way for mortals to live and quiet. So you can't go over. The bad will press you away. Don't talk about him as an old lady. It's a killing god. I have to go through it obediently. The old Taoist priest from the beginning. At best, it's just a way to do it. Go through the motions and engage in formality. According to the gourd to draw the scoop, you can also understand a little fur. You can really deal with ghosts and gods. Don't say it's him. Even Zonbing himself is not very sure. People and ghosts go to discuss things. It's not that you can talk about it. It's that you can't even find this ghost. How to deal with it. Zaven's soldiers were settled. It's about going to find this ghost. Because my aunt's young show is actually not over yet. He was hooked. That is, some people who died in vain, Yang show is not finished. For the flesh has been destroyed again. Can't return the Yang. Souls cannot enter the 6 realms of reincarnation. It's floating right outside. You have to find someone to suffer in your place. It's better to reincarnate by yourself. That's what we often say. Scapegoat. What about this ant? Because of the birth date, it just happens to match someone who died. It's inexplicable. I was hooked while I was sleeping. He was a substitute for the dead man. Because after death, the soul has to float outside for others. You can't enter the underworld. How could it be possible to cross the ferry bridge? He wouldn't have gone that way. So I can't get over a few words. Zawinbin also knows. Decided to give it a try. Fortunately, my aunt's body is still intact. If you can find your aunt's soul, get rid of that evil ghost again. There is still a chance for my aunt to return to her soul. After entering the house, Zawinbin's soul temporarily left the human world. Went to the ghost world. That is, Hades. As for this ability, this goes to hell. Naturally, it's not the same as buying a train ticket. Requires the help of some mana. Otherwise, once gone, this body is guarded by no one. Taken up by something else. Or what danger is there over there? It may be the same as my aunt. I'll never wake up. The time left for Zawinbin is actually very short. Able to come and go freely. Protect the body with oxygen. That is, the time of a burnt box. He ordered the burner box to be the timetable. Succeed or not. Before the end of this burnt box in the mortal world, he had to come back. Otherwise, you won't be able to find your way home. This man. There are 3 souls and 7 spirits. Zawinbin is seeing. There is still a spirit in my aunt. Although only a trace remains. You can also try. It is said that after this Zawinbin entered the underworld. First, I looked at what was left. These 3 souls and 7 spirits are one. As long as you don't leave, it means that my aunt is not far away, or still struggling. Zawinbin made a spell. The big day is like coming to set the 3 souls. First of all, I gave this thread to my aunt's body. Buy time. Then he ran directly to the Yin and Yang Road. It's at the head of the Nai-Ho Bridge. Zawinbin built 2 Yin Cha. Hold down a soul and prepare to cross the bridge. Whose soul does this soul belong to? Zawinbin stopped him as soon as he could. It's a bad thing. Actually, it doesn't matter, as long as you wild ghosts. I was able to find a substitute for the dead ghost to go back to the errand. It doesn't matter who you're looking for. People are treated the same after death. After explaining the reason to the Incha, people don't want to, because there's a mess waiting to be delivered. How can you give up the task at hand? Zawinbin said, My aunt still has 21 years of life. I will not die for someone else. Incha said, We just treat people, regardless of Yangsho. As he spoke, he was about to go that way. Zawinbin is lazy. In is about to do it. After all, you are a cultivator. Dare to come to the underworld. It's like looking for death. What about this inconsistency? Naturally, it is also divided into 3, 6, 9 and so on. These 2 inconsistencies are not much of an influx. It's just responsible for catching wild ghosts. It's all small characters. But Zawinbin didn't have that certainty of victory. Zawinbin looked back. The incense on that end is almost gone. Never go back. I'm afraid I'll have to stay here too. Look ahead. Mengpu at the other end is ready to pour soup. He shouted. Don't go in the dark. Leave this person behind. Where are those 2 Yin people willing to listen to a little gossip? Just go. In desperation, Zonbin took out the Heavenly Master's righteous path left by the ancestor. Asked. 2 shades. Recognizable as this. The 2 Yin guys stopped and looked back. This kind of thing in the ghost world is also known. Just look the trail up and down. This thing is in your hands. Who are you? In Cha recognizes self sleeping. Zhao Wenbing originally wanted to scare him. Unexpectedly, the other party actually asked him to get up, so he showed the sword. Two shades at a glance. The man unleashed another sword. Take a few steps back. They glanced at each other. One of the leaders said, 7-star sword. Don't say anything about the fairy road. It's not that we want to embarrass the immortal way, since Xiandao is the head of Mao Shan. Naturally understand the rules of the underworld. Once this man is here, I haven't been able to take it out yet. Otherwise, we won't be able to pay the difference when we go back. Immortal Dao is afraid that there are 3 clear covers on the top of his head. It is also difficult to get out of this underworld. I'm right. This Great Seal is the Great Seal of Mao Shan Palm. Doesn't that mean? The former Mage of the Year passed the position of head to the Patriarch Lin Zhongyang. Why did the master take the Great Seal of Palm teaching, but he was driven down the mountain? That's weird, isn't it? Zhao Wenbin has 2 treasures in his hands. It's also pretending to be guts for yourself. What if I have to take it? After speaking, he held a big seal. I made a move that I was going to smash forward. Those 2 were simple. Straight to the head. He looked scared. Zhao Wenbin looked effective. I suddenly had confidence. Put away the Great Seal. Looking at the 2 yin differences. The 2 yin looked at each other. First come, if you want to take it with you. I can only be given 1 more soul. We went back empty-handed. If the above knows about it, I'm afraid that the immortal path will also be inescapable. Zhao Wenbing nodded in agreement. Tomorrow, the 2 officials will go to Red Village again. I must give you an explanation. With that, he put away the Great Seal and the sword and walked over. He took out a handful of famous money and stuffed it into the 2 British chow men. The 2 of them went to buy some wine to drink. After the trail goes back, I will definitely give a big gift to the 2 of you. The little ones don't dare. Something that boils the mountain sedan chair. Don't dare to accept it. After some excuses, the 2 imps took the money and released the people. Agreed to go to Red Village the next day to wait for people. With that, they walked back together. That hapless ghost on the road. Inevitably, he was beaten by Zhao Wenbing and Ying. When the wild ghost heard it, it was Mao Shancheng's shout. I'm afraid that Zhao Wenbin will give him a bit. Eternal life shall not be exceeded. Explained that he was collecting medicine. He stumbled and died at the foot of Nyoto Mountain. Sure enough, there it was. Zhao Wenbin found his aunt's soul. After thanking the 2 of you, he returned to the Yang realm. Just after the incense was burned, Zhao Wenbin woke up from his meditation. Go straight to the foot of Nyoto Mountain. Everybody with lanterns. Finally, under a mess of rocks, found a rotting white bone. Some of them were instantly recognizable. This is a herb picker from a neighboring village. Said it had been missing for a long time. Hurry up and tell the family to come. When the family arrived, they burst into tears. Zhao Wenbin is not broken. Just tell the family. Go back and find a good student to bury. Burn more incense paper. So I went back to my aunt's house. This time, no one is allowed to enter. All stood in the doorway. Zhao Wenbin demanded, put my aunt on the bed. Everyone cleans up the site. Return to the way it was before the accident. You don't know. What kind of medicine is he selling in his gourd? You can only do so. Then make an appointment to come before dawn. Actually, Zhao Wenbin was afraid that his aunt would wake up. I saw that I was doing a funeral for myself, directly scared to death. After the first crowing of the rooster, the sky is already light. Zhao Wenbin went with everyone again. The first to go in was the eldest cousin. Go inside and have a look. My aunt was still lying in bed. The eldest cousin shouted softly. Mother. Lying aunt. First, it was done manually. Then I opened my eyes. He rubbed his eyes with his hands again, then asked, Why? This time it exploded directly. The dead are alive. Isn't this just blowing up a corpse? Just as everyone was getting ready to run out, Zhao Wenbin said, "It's okay. Your mom just fell asleep. Not dead at all. Unbelief. Go and touch it." A few brave people went up and touched it. The hand was found to be hot. The aunt also looked at the group of people inexplicably. "That's it." My aunt was snatched back by Zhao Wenbin. But what about the thing? But it didn't end. After Zhao Wenbin left, within a few days an old man died. Actually, this old man's yang shou is also unfinished. Zhao Wenbin calculated. He was the closest person in the entire village to death. So he wrote his birthday and burned it at the entrance of the village. After the old man's death, Zhao Wenbin made an exception and went to do a ritual. It's also so that the old man can ascend to Elysium quickly. But this incident made him very self-reproachful. This kind of work is actually damned. It also sowed a disaster for many things in his future. It didn't take a few days. Ing sent a dream to Zhao Wenbin. Tell him that there is a price to be paid for this life swap. Zhao Wenbin thought he was just here to ask for money again. He burned a large number of ingots to Ingcha. This time it's a change of life. It's just that he never thought that the price would come so quickly. And it's that big. It's so heavy. Zhao Wenbin has a pair of children. The youngest daughter is very smart. It's very much loved by her, because her wife died early. What about Zhao Wenbin? If you can't get out of the village, try not to go out. Be both a father and a mother. I just want to pull the two of them up. Because I have lost my parents since I was a child. So put all the feelings. Are all pinned on a pair of children. It's that little daughter. Sensible and well-behaved, although young. But he helped with cooking and laundry. Zhao Wenbin went out and came back late. A hot meal will be left on the table. Made him feel very guilty about this daughter. It was the Chinese New Year's Eve of that year. Around noon, the daughter of the Jia family carried a basket to the river to wash vegetables. Just one fell on his head. Drowned in a knee-length creek. Wait until someone informs Zhao Wenbin to go to the river. The person is no longer breathing. Zhao Wenbin didn't say a word. Holding the girl's corpse, he went home, closed the door, and go straight to the underworld. On the Huangquan Road, Zhao Wenbin rushed all the way. I haven't reached the Nai River Bridge yet. I met those two in again. He immediately turned his face. I took out the guy and rushed forward. The two Ingcha begged for mercy one after another. Tell Zhao Wenbin. They didn't do it at all. Where is Zhao Wenbin willing to believe? He's already red-eyed. I bury myself here today. I also want to get my daughter back, because his daughter is not over her life at all. The two Ingcha saw that they couldn't beg for mercy. You can only tell the truth. Your daughter crossed the line because she crossed the line. I was annoyed by the punishment that God had received. This is the celestial realm. It's not our business at all. If your son is okay, it is better to dilute the Ning people in this way. You Zhao Wenbin just have great ability. It is impossible to go against the sky. In the lower underworld, the next one to die, it's your son. Zhao Wenbin, Zhao Wenbin, the hero is known. Such a reckless life. Fight with the sky. You go with the sky. Do you have that much ability? What are you? It's just a little Taoist priest in the world. Wait for him to come back to his senses. Find out you've come back. Watch and stay by my sister's side. A crying son. Zhao Wenbin hugged his son tightly, gritting his teeth. Hold on. Zhao Wenbin is in the 30th year of the Chinese New Year's Eve. He buried his daughter beside his wife's grave. Be a Taoist. What's so good about it? Mom and Dad died. His wife died. Now even the daughter is gone. Looking at the only son on the side, Zhao Wenbin vowed to protect him. People say, Hades wants you to die 3 watches. Never leave you until the 5th watch. After the birth of a daughter, Zhao Wenbin received his daughter's dream. Tell him, he is to repay the debt of half a year ago to Zhao Wenbin. Zhao Wenbin will be punished by God if he gets married halfway. The price was that his daughter died in the 30th year of the Chinese New Year's Eve. This can be regarded as a warning from the king of Hades to Zhao Wenbin. In the world, you become enlightened, my king of Hades. There is a karma for everything. If you get it, you must pay it. The blow to Zhao Wenbin is very big. He locked himself in his house for a long time and began to think about the meaning of the Tao. It also led to a lot of poems of this Taoist in the future. That year, after Zhao Wenbin's daughter drowned, Zhao Wenbin locked himself in his home for 3 months and fed him out of the house. We've been there here too. He always closes his doors. 3 months later, Zhao Wenbin broke out. Make a beeline for the provincial capital. That is, from that time on. The first person of this story can't be me. The protagonist has completely become him. The last Taoist priest, Zhao Wenbin. Zhao Wenbin understood that he was angry. But he was not convinced. Heaven can determine the fate of people. Why can't you fight with the sky? Now it seems that the only way to crack it. I'm afraid it's the Book of Wishes. Where is the legendary book? Is there a book or not? Everything is unknown. But the message left by those murals in the dungeon, it still gave him a glimmer of hope. Those words left on the walls of the general's temple. Maybe it's a clue. He went to find the archaeological team Lao Wang. He entrusted his son to his grandmother. Let his grandmother take care of him for a while. Naturally, my grandmother agreed. He left some belongings. My grandmother refused to accept it. I couldn't resist it, and I barely put it away. He said he was buying some clothes for his son.